is here. I'm glad to be here on Black History Month. This is the second Sabbath of Black History Month, and I certainly will say a little bit about our history. But are you watching what's going on in our world today? I will simply say the Lord is soon to come. Decency has left the room. Truth seems to have departed our midst. And right now we're living in a rough, tough world. I would suggest to you that the Constitution that we thought could keep us safe and free is being ripped up in front of our very eyes, and an ongoing crime is being perpetrated in the White House. And if we're not careful, we're going to end up in a position where things have so shifted that America, this land of the free and home of the brave, can end up looking just like that second beast in Revelation that comes up out of the land and begins to flex its muscles in a coercive way. And if we're not careful, we will not be ready. And in fact, we'll have to do during times of trouble what we did not do during times of ease. Right now, we still have some freedoms that are going to quickly leave because the last movements will be rapid ones. And I want to suggest that we get busy doing what matters most right now, because when time is no more and eternity begins, we're going to look back on the things that we failed to do for the Lord with great regret. We've got to make sure we take care of our loved ones. We've got to make sure that we seek the face of God when we start each and every day. We've got to learn to just say yes to God before we understand why He even asked for it. We've got to be obedient and all in, and until we get there, we're not ready to see Him in peace. We can't stop His coming, but we can hasten it when we begin to do the work He called us to do. This gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world, just as it was preached, as Jesus described in Matthew 25, where we're taking care of those who have needs, where it is an interpersonal kind of faith that is not a distant relationship from the Lord, where we go to the museum called church and look at all of the relics that represent the past of what He did in the scriptures, but we begin to walk and talk with Him and live with Him like He's right by our side until we begin to commit our lives to Him fully, not just in the easy areas that agree with our temperament, but in those things that call for massive reformation of who we are and what we've been doing. I believe even as I look at the Church of Jesus Christ, we're going to have to go through a radical transformation that brings us back to a primitive godliness where what matters most is what we spend time doing. We've gotten into rituals that make us look a lot like the Jews of Jesus' day, who took comfort in the fact that they knew all of the rituals of religion and the ceremonies that were determined to be run in the sanctuary based on an old system that was about to die with the death of Jesus. Going into the New Testament, there are those who continue to grip what was old and fail to realize what was new. Jesus set a new paradigm and said, "Follow me." And the old gospel of ceremonies and traditions was to die with Jesus on the cross. Forget the bulls and the goats and all of the things you did to feel righteous and holy when you had done wrong. Now follow Jesus, and with the shedding of His blood and the cleansing of our sins, make sure that you don't lift up to the place of God the rituals of religion that were designed to point to Jesus. We are so into our rituals of religion that across America and the world every Saturday, routines are gone through that give us glimpses of perhaps a little bit of who God is, but in our program there really is no room for deliverance. If somebody rose up and said, "I've got a demon and I want it cast out," the deacons would quickly hustle them out, and the service would continue to roll on just like it is written up in the bulletin. Because we have prescribed God to routines, when in reality He's trying to take us somewhere else. I reached a place where I have a foundation now that's more sure than the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist because I believe that the teachings of our faith line up with the scriptures that I have read. The foundation of my faith is the Word of God, however, not the latest GC session or what the GC president said. He might say, "Don't clap," but I read in His Word, "Clap your hands, all ye people." And my foundation is the Bible, not the interpretation of the Bible by some man or even the denomination I'm part of. I've heard people tell me you ought to wear a tie, and I've asked them, where's the text? If you give me a text, I've got to do it. But if you can't give me a text, I might suggest that it's a way to live and maybe even okay. But I'm now a Bible-believing Christian. The Bible is my foundation, and you need a sure foundation. You got to have a sure foundation. All of this is preamble to what I'm getting ready to deliver right now. But we've got to find another way to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. I said to your pastor as we talked through some of the deeper issues of life and the church just since I've been here, I shared with him that some of those who are calling for a maintenance of traditions that are not working even with their own children, that we do nobody a favor maintaining traditions and then hoping someone shows up to sit in the pew to listen to the gospel. This gospel that we hold is of very little value beyond our own souls if there's nobody to hear it. He told us preach the gospel to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people. He didn't say preach it to the pews, maintain a purity of tradition and preach to your pews. I would suggest to you it's time that we have radical transformation and change the packaging of what we do. The gospel of Jesus Christ, I feel his unction on me today. The gospel of Jesus Christ does not change. It remains true. Everything that the Bible has declared. We don't have to fix that, but if we're speaking a language nobody's hearing, then who is to benefit? 1 Corinthians 14 makes that clear. Speak in tongues all you want. Go home and Asada Mahanda all you want. But if people can't understand what you're saying, then what benefit is it? What benefit is it? And I would suggest we cannot just sit back and watch our children exodus out of the church and not go after them. I told your pastor I'm so proud of what this church is doing with what is ahead with the building program. I'm so proud of it. And even looking at some of the plans that have been laid, I had a chance to look at the land. I promise you, I felt God when I drove past that land. It made so much sense to me. And then the plans that are coming forward. Most churches are nothing more than just a worship center and nothing else, where you can come in and have a service twice a week, really 1.5 times a week, because nobody comes to prayer meeting. In some other churches, I know this church is full at prayer meeting time, but in some other churches, they don't come on Wednesday night. It's one of those traditions too, and rather than finding a way to broadcast into their homes maybe on Wednesday night or Tuesday or whatever, we keep having it, and the 2 or 3 come, give the same testimony they've been given for the last 6 decades about what the Lord did for them at their birth, when in fact God's still moving, and we think that that's what it's supposed to look like. But I'm going to tell you something. When you follow the footsteps of Jesus, Jesus rarely did his best work inside of a worship service. Worship services are inspirational. You need them. Come to church and participate in the worship service. But that is the dessert after a week-long meal. You're going to have to learn to do the works that Jesus did and do the works of Jesus like he did. Everybody's looking for the next innovation. We've already been through liturgical innovation. Everybody got a drum. Everybody got one. So don't think that's going to make people flood to your church. Oh, we got a drum. Nice. Liturgical innovation is nice. But that's not what's drawing people to church. Barna even talks about that. Your music needs to be at a high level, and it is here. Keep it there. But at the end of the day, there's got to be more than that. Every time we start talking about what's next, we try to switch the order of service around a little bit and think that's it. Or come up with some new genre of music. That's it. It ain't it. Follow the footsteps of Jesus. We have to create settings. Look at this, very fast. And I'll deduct this from my sermon time. Is that okay? If you look at the footsteps of Jesus, you will discover, even in the New Testament, after Jesus went back, they got it. And it says that when the Holy Ghost fell on them and the church was exploding, what they experienced was fellowship, breaking of bread, etc. Remember that? When Jesus was reaching the lost, he was reaching them mostly outside of the worship service. Why? Because y'all are supposed to be saved already. You're supposed to be saved already. He said, I came to seek and save the lost. Those who are well need no physician. I don't need to preach to the choir. Jesus said, I encourage my children, but I'm here to save those who are lost. And the lost aren't always at church. And here's the paradigm that we're coming out of. All this comes together. Here's the paradigm we're coming out of. The paradigm we're coming out of is where we take a church and we set it up over here and we say, there's the church. And then we start paying money for advertising and flyers and everything else to try to get some people to come to the church so that they can get the gospel. If they don't make it there, they're lost. That's like saying if you can't make your way over to this lifeboat while you're drowning in the water, you ain't going to get saved. Yeah, we're a hospital, but sometimes people are in such bad shape they can't make it to the hospital. So there are emergency medical vehicles and methods to go where the people are. But we set the church up here and try to convince folks, come on in and you're going to get something that's going to save you. Well, that's one method, but it ain't the only method. I looked at what Jesus did. You know what he did? There was a woman who was of another faith. She was a Samaritan and would never have stepped inside of Jesus' Seventh-day Adventist church. But she needed salvation. So what Jesus did is Jesus said, okay, rather than expecting her to make it here to this place called church, I'm going to make my way out and bring the church to her by a well. You recall the place of the well is a place everybody had to go because you can't live without water. It was just a normal stop in her daily routine. And Jesus said, if I'm going to get to her, I've got to go where she is. I can't expect her to come to where I am. So Jesus went and sat down at a well in the heat of the day and had an opportunity to interact in a way he never would have been able to do at church. So some of us who are like-minded, and I believe we're hearing from the Spirit, are saying that we no longer can set up a program that requires everybody to make their way to us to get some good religion. But like Jesus, Dr. Lane, we're going to have to leave our comfortable quarters and get out there where the people are. So what I'm involved in right now, and I think where you're going with what you're doing is here. I've lost a lot of young people too, some in my own household, who have seen the ugly underbelly of what we call church. And they weren't strong enough to withstand it. I'm praying that they're going to return because there's some blessings you get when you're part of the household of faith. But I'm not going to sit around waiting because I'm not the only one who's lost some folks. Stats tell me differently. When I go around and preach and look at who's at church, something got to change. Can't be satisfied with what's not working right now. So what we did is we said, okay, we're losing all of our young people and we're not really making a great impact in this city. I live in one of those cities where people trade members around. Somebody get mad, they go to another church. Get mad at my church, they go to another church. On Saturday morning, they get up, look who's preaching here, there, and everywhere, and they just go around. So that's cute, but that's not the job God gave us. So we said, okay, we got to do something different. We had a nice worship facility. Some people thought I was stupid to fool around with that worship facility. Nice worship place. It was Patmos Chapel Worship Center. Wonderful. Great services that had been held there. A lot of deliverance took place in that building. But times changed. And the people there were losing their kids and not impacting the community and living in the history book, talking about what they did. I said, you know what, that's good. God has been good. And history is not erased, but the last chapter has not been written either. And to require the next generation to live in the chapter we wrote, I'm speaking now as an older person. I was born in the 50s. So to require the next generation to live in the chapter we wrote is unfair to them. They have a chapter to write too. And the blood, sweat, and tears that we experienced building what we built, while we can remain proud of that, it's now time for what we call step-up equity, where because of what we did, they're now in position to do what they can do. And we decided that we weren't going to spend a lot of money repairing what was broken at our church, but we would get a new one. And we came up with a crazy idea, and God is the one who gave us the idea. We ended up buying a 105,000 square foot athletic complex. It's got a huge gymnasium with 3 college-sized basketball courts, 6 volleyball courts, a restaurant upstairs. There's a karate dojo downstairs. There's a gymnastics facility in there. And we made a decision we're not getting rid of any of that. Because every single day people flood into that place. It's like the rail where people are just living life. Bringing their children to do gymnastics, bringing their children to play basketball, leagues going on. And we said, that's where we want to be. We want to be at the rail where people come to get regular water, but when they get the regular water, we're going to give them some eternal water that'll leave them never thirsty again. We said that God is calling us to leave where we were, having our great little worship services, and set up camp right there where there are people passing through who might never stop at our church, but they come to the well to just live life. And you know the blessing? God set it up so that there is an area in there we can build a worship center that will seat 1,200. Thank you, God. But we left everything else intact. So now we have people flowing through there every day. In fact, tomorrow there will literally be thousands there who are coming for Dynasty basketball and indoor soccer league and all this stuff. And we'll be there with our cafeteria or our restaurant open. We will have all of the televisions playing the gospel we want them to hear. We're going to have our people there who are mingling and going around assisting and helping people, praying for folks. We have 5 professional basketball players who call that place home. We have a trainer who's in there every day who's part of our team, and we get to interact with folks now who we never would have been able to share the gospel with. And on top of it, God is giving us every month $20,000 to $30,000 extra to help us with our ministry ventures. So if the whole no, I shouldn't say this, but if the whole church gets mad and leaves, the bills are paid. Show you how that works. I'm taking all this off my preaching time. Let me show you how it works. I couldn't share the vision in a way that they were catching. And I had an elder, a very influential elder, who in fact went with me over there. We didn't own the building yet. It was built in 2015. We didn't own it yet. And I said, watch this, watch this. I was telling him, hey, we get a chance to interact with people more easily when I'm wearing a suit and tie. Sometimes people don't deal with me in an authentic way. They'll say, hello, Reverend, and it's a real light conversation. I said, watch this. I went over to the area where a guy was lifting weights. He was pumping some iron. I said, yo, he was a basketball player. I said, yo, and I said, yo. I don't dress like this even over there. I dress down. I said, yo, I said, hey, man, I see you working. You're pumping it. You look like you got a strong upper body, but you probably need to spend a little more time working on those skinny legs. He stopped pumping. He looked at me. I said, man, honestly, I'm kind of old, but I believe I could push you around in the paint, man. Work on those legs. He said, well, my parents taught me not to be disrespectful to old people. Just the truth. We had a good laugh. We started talking. Found out he played basketball at Cal State Fullerton. Learned that he was a Baptist, hadn't been to church in a long time. We were able to talk it out in a way I could never have talked to him after this service. Number one, he wouldn't have come. Number two, he would have dealt with me like I'm a preacher. I said, Elder, did you see how easy that was? That's how Jesus did it. So we've set up a place now that is going to be a gathering spot. In fact, we call it the Well Activity Center. And the idea is that evangelism is not doing a program where we invite some people to come in, hear some enthusiastic preaching and great singing, give them some Bible studies, and their lives will forever be changed, but we get a chance to, with low pressure sales, show them what the gospel looks like, pray them through trouble. The guy who's in charge of our Well Activity Center every day is Billy Simons. Billy Simons is the grandfather of Anthony Simons, who is a first-round draft pick with the Portland Trail Blazers. People know them, and he's there talking with them as they enter winter. One lady came in, she would come with her sister to drop off a child at gymnastics. And one day, one lady came in without the other. He said, where is she? She's a little depressed. She can't find a job. She's been out of work for a couple of months now. She came back in the next day, and Simons called her over and said, I heard you're looking for a job. Do you mind if I pray for you? She said, I don't mind. Depressed. He prayed. The very next day, she came skipping back in the place. I found a job. God gave me a job. Now you tell me, is it going to be hard to share the gospel with her? But we like to hang around with each other in this place called church. Whatever you do, make sure that when you build, have faith, number one. Because God doesn't do normal stuff. He does supernatural stuff. So make sure your prayers are God-sized. Your faith is God-sized. Don't count your pities and say what you can't do. I trusted God at Madison Mission Medlock, and we had $3.5 million we owed with a bunch of college students sitting in the pews. People said, you're dumb. They'll never pay for it. But I tell you what, we had $1 million left to go, and in 1 year's time, they were bringing jars of change and everything else, and in 52 weeks, we paid off the last $1 million and burned the mortgage early. I don't care what you did with paper and pen, that could not be done, but it was. We insult God with our little tiny prayers and our minute expectations when God wants to do something God-sized. He wants your church to have the influence to go in front of the mayor, wave the finger and say, you better change that. The ability for the church to help provide employment, not just pray somebody gets a job. Open during the week so that the lost don't have to wait until Saturday to get something. God-sized prayers. And trust the visionary God gave you. What has slowed down some of the progress more than anything else in the building programs I've been part of is committees waiting to see it. Sometimes God doesn't work that way. Here's my advice. That if God has showed your visionary something, and he has not showed you something contrary to that, then trust the man of God. Only stand up and fight if God tells you, and you better listen carefully and make sure it's his voice. If God says no, 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 then you have to stand up and say no. But if it's you that you just don't see it, I've experienced that. Can I preach today, or am I supposed to just talk? I'll rush through the sermon part, I promise. Let me stop there. I'm very, very excited about what God has ahead for you. Work with your pastor, work with God, and watch what happens. All right, now, very quickly. Can you give me 15? You can? Half of you said yes, half no. I'm confused. I want to know what I can do. Pastor, can I get 15? Let me do it. Here's the text. I don't have good sense, y'all. I've faced death this past year. I've had 5 surgeries. Not too much I'm scared of at this point. I'm in the hand of God. That's the only way I've made it. Here we go. Matthew, the 14th chapter, familiar text of Scripture. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he sent the multitude away. That's the 22nd verse. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. Now, when evening came, he was alone there. But the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Now in the 4th watch of the night, that is between 3 and 6, 3 a.m. and 6, the 4th watch of the night, Jesus went to them, walking on the sea. Is that a misprint? He was doing what? Okay, that's what it says. And when the disciples saw him walking, that's twice, he's walking on the sea. They were troubled, saying, "It is a ghost." These boys had limited exposure, obviously. That's pagan philosophy. And then they cried out for fear. They got girly with it. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Be of good cheer. It is I, do not be afraid." And Peter answered him and said, of course it would be Peter. And Peter said, "Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you on the water." What a request. So he said, "Come." And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. Look at Peter walking on water. But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, "Lord, save me." And immediately, how quickly? Immediately, Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Boy, he walked on water with just a little faith. And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. When he was safe, back in the boat, then the wind ceased. Then those who were in the boat came and worshiped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." You may be seated in the presence of God. So here's the deal. My faith is in God. God made himself clear to me when I read his word. That's why I say for me the Bible is foundational. Everybody needs a foundation. Death of Kobe Bryant recently had me looking up a little bit about him. You all know about the Mamba mentality, that never say die, that indomitable spirit, that go for it, can't lose attitude that he had. I was interested. When I studied, I found two things that I did not know about him. Two things. First, in an interview in 2006 with Stephen A. Smith, I don't know if you've seen it, but Stephen A. Smith asked him after Kobe Bryant had gotten in trouble in Colorado with accusations that were made that were not flattering, to say the least. He said to Kobe, he said, "How is it that you were able to make it through it?" And Kobe said these words, "God is great." I thought I didn't hear correctly when he said it, but Stephen A. said, "Really, God is great? Did you not know that before? Tell me about how you know God is great." And Kobe said, "Well," he said, "you can know God is great, but you don't really know it until you have a cross that you can't carry." And he picks up your cross and carries it, and he carries you. Then you know that God is great. I said, hey, wait a minute. I didn't know this about this man. Even on the day of his death, the 26th, I believe it is, of January, before he was heading in the helicopter to the basketball practice with his daughter over at Mamba Academy and the 7 others who were in there, he actually got up before the 7 o'clock mass. He was a Catholic, and he actually went to church. And the preacher there said that when Kobe was leaving, he had a little water on his head that indicated he had been in the prayer room and had taken some water and put it on his own head. He had been talking to God. Now, I'm not of the same faith that he is, but I do know that before he started his last day, he went into the prayer room to talk to God. I said, I see that this man had a foundation that is much stronger than his skill level. He believed in God. I tell you what, if you don't have a strong foundation, then you'll never grow up straight and be able to stand tall when times get tough. Are you aware of the Leaning Tower of Pisa and why it leans so much? That tower was leaning about 17 feet to the side, a 118-foot tall tower, 7 stories high. Back in the 1990s, $25 million was spent to repair and renovate that place because it looked like it was about to fall over. They moved over 110 tons of dirt, and they were only able to straighten it up 16 more inches. And the reason it was so tough is because of the soil that it was built on. It is not leaning because it wasn't good material. It's not leaning because there wasn't good workmanship. It's not leaning because there wasn't a good design. All of those pieces were in place. It's leaning because it was built on a former estuary where a river meets with a stream, and the sandy dirt underneath it can't hold the weight of a monument that size. And so the shifting sands beneath that big monument caused it to lean. And may I suggest that if you don't have a strong anchor, your anchor's got to be stronger than the church. Your anchor has to be stronger than the opinions others have of you. The anchor has to be stronger than your skill set. All of that can disappear in a moment's notice. You've got to have an anchor that keeps the soul, or you cannot face tough times or rough challenges. I want to suggest today, and this is the sermon in a nutshell, that you begin to make the Bible your anchor. It is a Bible that teaches you about a God who can do anything but fail. It is a Bible that even shows you what your possibilities are. It exposes you to things you would not otherwise know. Exposure matters. In fact, that's the job of the Scriptures. Look for a moment at what was going on with these disciples. You recall Jesus had fed the hungry people with just 5 loaves and a few fish. It was a miracle of gargantuan proportions. These disciples, mostly fishermen, simple men, and I don't mean that in a complimentary way, had limited exposure, had not seen much in life. They lived right around the Sea of Galilee, and their hopes and dreams, their aspirations and their goals were very low because they did not know what was possible out there. They had goals like just getting a larger boat or being a better fisherman or moving to a larger hovel. They did not have any God-sized dreams or goals until Jesus. Now they've discovered some things they didn't know before. When they saw Jesus feed all of these people, multiply the bread and the fish, they began to have goals arise that they had never thought of before. We thought we would always be under Roman rule, but now we see that Jesus is capable of raising the dead and feeding folks with no fields of grain. They said we can use the power of God to lift ourselves to positions in his government when he takes over. And the Bible makes it clear that on occasion they would talk about that with each other. Ellen White paints the picture that what was literally happening after Jesus had fed these people is the disciples and the began to talk amongst themselves, saying, this guy is too humble to step up to the throne. But the gifts he's got can benefit us and the whole nation. Let's take him by force and push him to the throne. And it was their goal to do that. And when they started walking towards Jesus, Jesus stood up, and with the same creative authority he used in Genesis 1, his voice bellowed out at them. Ellen White says it's the first time he had talked this way. He said, everybody go home. He did not want to hear the flattery of the people. He wanted them to take the seeds of the gospel that he sowed and go home and let them grow into fruit. He wasn't there for a temporary earthly kingdom, and he would not have them grab him and place him there with authority. He spoke, and they began to disperse. Then he looked at his disciples with eyes on fire, disappointed at them. And he said, guys, I don't want to deal with you right now. I'm getting ready to go to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. What I want you to do is get in the boat and meet me over there. It's almost like he wanted to cool down just a little bit. We don't know how he got to the other side, but he ended up on the other side. Got there more quickly than you ought to be able to get there. He was God. And so he gets to the other, maybe he was teleported by angels. Use your imagination, but he's instantly on the other side of the Sea of Galilee, and it ought to take you many hours to get there. The disciples fussing amongst themselves, let time get away, and now it's starting to be late. They get into the boat, not a large boat, probably about the size from here to that back wall, just an oversized canoe. This is not some big cruise ship, and these disciples with their smelly sails at the end of a long day get in the boat, getting on each other's nerves. They're not working hard rowing to get to the other side. They know Jesus is mad, and they're kind of hoping that he cools down enough, and so they're taking it easy. Finally, it's starting to get dark, and the skies are starting to look like there's going to be a bad storm. The winds begin to blow softly at first, and they don't hustle because they're not aware of the imminent danger. These men of the sea are so busy trying to make God do what they want him to do that they forgot to do what he told them to do. They're floating along on that Sea of Galilee. I feel my help right now. They're floating on the Sea of Galilee, when all of a sudden the soft winds turn into a raging storm, and the waters begin to flow, and the waves begin to lap over the side of the boat, and the boat's taking on water. And for the first 3 watches, what the men do for 9 straight hours is what they knew how to do. Remember, I told you they had limited exposure. They didn't know all the possibilities that existed. So they start doing what fishermen do, what men of the sea believe might work. They start flowing with the waves, and then they turn the boat against the waves, and they lift up the sail, and they drop the sail, and they bail out water, and they begin to row real hard, and everything they're doing is coming to naught. Isn't it crazy that sometimes we don't even think about God until we've tried everything we know how to do? They had limited exposure. I'm telling you that they didn't know very much. No, they didn't. But now, after they've done everything they can possibly do, Jesus, who is on the other side, looking at them struggling in the water, like a lifeguard who says, I gotta wait until they stop fighting because they'll kill everybody, and then I'll go save them. They now are resigned to the fact that they are going to die. Their plans have come to naught, and they have an existential crisis, believing that what they intended to happen is not going to happen. The resources are not here. We're going to die. We're going to die. When all of a sudden Jesus says, enough, I think they're ready for me now. They now know that they don't have what it takes. They now know that they need some help. Jesus now begins to look around. He can't find a boat, but Jesus doesn't need a boat. Remember, he got to the other side, and it wasn't on a boat, because a boat couldn't have got there that fast. Jesus begins to sprint on the water. The Bible says walking, but he got way out there. These men who are too far from shore to go back and too far from their destination to keep moving forward and live, and so Jesus meets them where they are. I feel a sermon in that. Right where they are. He showed up in the bar for somebody in here. He showed up in the midst of your mess for somebody in here. He didn't wait until you could get to shore and then give you a lecture. He went out there where you were dying, and he saved you. Jesus is sprinting towards them, and when they look, remember I told you they had limited exposure. Pagan religion taught, and even some sects, S-E-C-T-S, of religion, their religion said that when you die, you don't really die. They said, looks like Jesus, must be a ghost. I don't get the reasoning. It's not logical to me. Looks like Jesus, must be a ghost. But that's what they came up with. Remember, they had limited exposure. Sometimes your goals, aspirations, and dreams are limited because of your limited exposure. When you haven't seen something, you can't very well desire that something. When you don't know it exists, you'll probably never ask for it. You'll never yearn for it. You'll never desire it. That's why we get very comfortable with where we are and what we know. I share with your pastor, have a seat. I share with your pastor this. Can I share it with you? That I've had 2 transplant surgeries. And here's a crazy thing about it. I take all these pills. And I know some of you health people say, don't take them pills, just take herbs. Well, I'm going to tell you something right now. I'm going to take them pills. And I'm going to tell you why I'm going to take the pills. Because those pills do something that herbs don't do. Let me explain it to you. The pills that I take actually dial my immune system down. Because the way the immune system works, hear this. Now I'm going to quickly get to the end. The way the immune system works is like this. The immune system will take foreign things that are inside of you and attack them. Jump them. Say they don't belong in here. So now I have 2 foreign things inside of me, one of them being a kidney. It's a great kidney. My old kidneys were horrible. If I was young, I'd say they sucked. My old kidneys weren't worth a dime. They weren't doing anything. They weren't filtering like they should. They were jacked up kidneys, but my immune system never attacked them because they just belonged. They were comfortable with them. And when I got a new kidney, that works. That bad boy can pump out some fluids now. My kidney is a great kidney. It's a young kidney. It's a working kidney. It's better than my old kidneys, but my immune system said it doesn't belong. It's effective, but it doesn't belong. It's not the way we do things inside of this body. And it won't bother what doesn't work because it's always been there. But it will jump that which does work because it's new. Don't fight everything new. So I have got to take pills that trick my immune system and dial it down so that it won't attack what's working inside of my body. That's a leadership principle. In fact, I just got a new sermon right there. So them boys were working with what they knew. Jesus, though, says, it's I. I like his language. Me. They knew who he was. And Peter then says, Lord, if it's you, getting near the end. And when I point at you like that, that's when we start that music. No, play with me now. Work with me. No, you're good. You work with me now, but I'm telling you, I'm done when you do me. When I do like this, then you just start playing whatever it is you play at the end. You know how that is. And I won't leave you hanging either. I won't preach for a long time after you started. But I like what you're doing with me now. Work with me. So here we are. Here we are. Here we are. If it's you, let me come out. Now, that's a little faith. He didn't just say, Lord, save us. I know their prayer before was, Lord, save us, just get us to the other side. But now Peter sees something he had never seen before. Here I am. Sermon is called The Secret Menu. When you're limited in your exposure, you don't even know everything that's available for you to ask for. Save us, Lord. On this tempestuous sea, as though you got to stay in this position and be saved. He'll do better than that. Peter says, what? Let me get in his head now. That's Jesus walking on water? Peter said, I was asking for you to save us before because that's all I thought you could do. We saw you stand up in the ship before and say to the winds and the waves, peace, be still. We were exposed to you stopping the storm. But we had no idea that we could walk on top of the storm. We knew you could shut it up and you could get us out of trouble, but we didn't know you could give us power to walk on trouble. I see now, because you're walking on water, that walking on water is possible. So Lord, let me walk on water. Peter never would have prayed that prayer before. Nobody was thinking about jumping out the boat and walking on water until they saw that that was on the menu. Y'all ever heard of the secret menu? Secret menu is a marketing tool that's used by restaurants, especially fast food places. It'll make you do research. In fact, some people are going to leave here today or pull out your phones now and start doing some research. Because you may not know it, but there are some foods and drinks available to you that are not listed on the menu when you go to the place. The technique is called secret menu. When there is a secret menu, you've got to go and look it up. You have to find out what's on the secret menu, and then you can order it. I remember the first time I discovered this, I was at In-N-Out Burgers. For all you know, I was eating a lettuce sandwich, so don't ask me what I was getting. Use your imagination. In-N-Out Burgers, I was there with my wife waiting, and there was somebody in front of me, and I heard them order animal fries and an animal burger. I began to look on the menu. There were no animal fries or animal burger, and I saw what she walked away with, and I said, that looks good. Ooh. I said, babe, I don't see that on the menu. My wife said, no, honey, that's on the secret menu. We started looking up secret menu, In-N-Out. And we discovered that they had foods available that you had to ask for, and you could only ask for them if you knew about them because they were on the secret menu. And when you ask for them, they got to give it to you because it's on the secret menu. But you can't walk up in there and say, can I have that thing? And they don't volunteer the information. You may not have known it, but McDonald's has a secret menu. Burger King has a secret menu. Chipotle has a secret menu. Disney World has a secret menu. You can get a vegan burger at Disney World. Nobody's excited about the vegan burger. Let me keep moving. There's Starbucks. You can get a Skittles Frappuccino at Starbucks. Secret menu. Arby's has a secret menu. I can go on with the places that have a secret menu, but you can't get it unless you know about it, because when you know about it, then you can ask for it. You can't ask for it unless you know about it. You got to be exposed to it, ladies and gentlemen. We are children of the Most High God, and He's given us a secret menu. And there are people who are missing out on blessings, losing out on opportunities, because God said, if you ask for it, I'll give it. But you can't ask for it if you don't know it exists. This Bible has exposed me to miracles, signs, and wonders, blessings that I can never even imagine. Above all, I can ask or think. There are things available, but I look at this book that I would not know to ask for. But now that I know, I walk up to the counter of God during prayer time, and I begin to say, God, I want to order some peace. I've been in some church situations so bad, I had to take my brain away to Tahiti after praying, while my body was still there being abused by people who told me I wasn't worth a dime. I had a group to actually start holding prayer services, praying that I would die. But I tell you what, I had peace that passes understanding, because I went to His word and He says, my peace I give to you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither be afraid. I ordered that. Have you ever been without money? Couldn't pay your bills? Do you not know that in the secret menu, God said that the cattle on 1,000 hills belongs to Him? He said, if I was hungry, I wouldn't tell you. But if you're hungry, would you please tell me? Because I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor the seed begging for bread. I order what I need when I need it. It's on the secret menu. If you're depressed, God says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So just come unto me. I order depression be gone. When I was sick and facing death, I saw that God is a healer. Jehovah Rapha is His name. And I said, God, I need a touch right now. He said, I am the Lord that healeth thee. And I ordered some healing. Whatever it is you need, God's got it. But you got to first of all find it on the secret menu. Secret menu is so important because when I pray God's promises to Him, when I say, God, you said, then God always says, I said it, so I will do it. If I've declared it, I will perform it. And I pray God's promises right back to Him. And I'm always ordering off the secret menu. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm about done now. But what happened is when he found out that you actually can walk on water, Peter got out of the boat and he began to walk. He wasn't very good at it, but who is good at walking on water? It was the first time a human who wasn't also God had ever done that trick. And so he started sinking, but God lifted him up, did He not? And when they got back on the boat, people without faith had faith because of that water walking experience of Peter and Jesus. I guess I'm trying to say to you that if you would stop being so small in your thinking. No, if we would stop being so small in our thinking. If we would stop praying for the stuff we already know we got covered. If we would begin to ask for the impossible. If we would challenge God to do that which is the unthinkable. If we would believe once again in miracles, signs, and wonders. If we would pray with expectation that someone will be healed. If we would go to God with the belief that if He's got to pull it out of the fish, He'll find the money. If you've got to begin to do things that you've never done before and reach down deep for faith you've never had before. If you would put God to the test, God, like a proud father, will come through for you every time. And you can know that when you begin to study His word and see what He did in times past. And then just put a parenthesis, a comma behind that and say, and He said, that in the last days, greater things. Greater. Preacher, I'm looking for the greater. And it might have something to do with the fact we're not ordering the greater off of the secret menu. We're ordering the normal, the regular, the mundane, the run-of-the-mill, and then call ourselves children of God. So what looked like it was going to be a tragic end, in the midst of their existential dilemma, it ended up being a miracle of his grace, because he specializes in helping his children walk on water when it looks like they're not going to make it. I've got some more sermon, but I don't have any more time. So I'm going to make a quick appeal, but a serious appeal. Maybe you've got it totally together and you have no needs whatsoever, but I'm already on my feet because I got some needs. I'm going to go further than that. I've got some wants, some desires. And I am no longer going to be shy with God. I'm going to look at his word and see what he promised. And then I'm going to go to him with boldness. Did he say come to his throne? With boldness? Boldly to the throne of grace. And you'll find the help you need. Whatever it is you need. And my God shall supply